She's not avoiding you, folks. She's fighting the pull she feels for you. Now be honest, my friend. You notice it. One day she's warm, laughing, leaning in, holding eye contact a little too long. The next day she goes quiet, replies slow, plans get vague, and you start doing what most men do. You blame yourself. You wonder if you moved too fast, said the wrong thing, or if she's talking to some other guy. That spiral makes you chase, ask for reassurance, or try to lock her down with a serious talk, and that's exactly when you lose the tension that attracted her in the first place. Here's what most men never understand. When a woman starts catching real feelings, especially the kind that comes with strong chemistry, it can scare her. It hits her nervous system like risk. She pulls back to regain control, not because you're unattractive, but because you're dangerous to her emotional balance. In this video, I'm going to show you the signs that prove she's not drifting away, she's resisting. You'll learn what her hot and cold actually means, how to respond without chasing, and how to stay grounded so she feels safe moving closer. Stay tuned, because one detail near the end will expose the difference between fear and games, and it changes how you act today forever. Let's get into it. Number 1. She pulls back after getting close. Let's speak honestly here, folks. This moment confuses more men than almost anything else in dating. Things feel good, conversation flows easily, there's comfort, warmth, and a quiet sexual tension that doesn't need to be explained. You feel closer. She feels closer. And then, without warning, she pulls back. Most men panic right here. They assume closeness should always lead to more closeness. More texts, more reassurance, more access. But attraction doesn't move in straight lines. When emotional and sexual connection reaches a certain depth, it can trigger fear instead of comfort. Let's put this into a real situation. Imagine a man named Kevin, 53, divorced, stable, confident in life, but cautious in relationships. He meets Melissa, 47, attractive, thoughtful, emotionally aware, but guarded from past heartbreak. Early on, everything feels light. Then one evening they spend hours talking, not surface talk, real talk, values, past relationships, long pauses filled with eye contact. The tension is undeniable. The next day, Melissa pulls back. She doesn't disappear. She doesn't cut him off, but her energy shifts, replies slow. Her tone becomes measured. Plans feel less certain. Kevin immediately assumes he did something wrong. His instinct is to explain himself, to reach out more, to ask what changed. This is the moment most men lose control. What's actually happening has nothing to do with lost attraction. It has everything to do with attraction becoming real. When closeness crosses a certain threshold, it stops feeling safe. It starts carrying emotional and sexual weight. That weight feels risky. Melissa didn't pull back because she felt nothing. She pulled back because she felt too much, too fast. Closeness meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant reopening parts of herself she thought were protected. Let's be clear about something important. People don't pull away from what feels empty. They pull away from what feels powerful. If Kevin didn't matter, Melissa wouldn't need space at all. She would simply fade without resistance. Pulling back after getting close is often the nervous system applying brakes. Desire surged. Distance is the counterbalance. This isn't rejection, it's regulation. Kevin makes a critical choice. Instead of chasing clarity, he stays steady. He doesn't punish her distance. He doesn't disappear to regain leverage. He keeps his tone calm. He stays engaged in his own life. He remains present without leaning forward emotionally. That composure does something most men underestimate. It keeps the tension alive without pressure. Over the next few days, Melissa begins re-engaging in subtle ways. A light message, a casual check-in, not because Kevin pushed, but because he didn't collapse. His steadiness gave her space to process without feeling chased or cornered. This is where masculine discipline matters most. When you react emotionally to a pullback, you confirm her fear. When you stay grounded, you create safety. And safety is what allows attraction to return on its own terms. Here's the truth, my friend. When she pulls back after getting close, don't assume rejection. Assume intensity met caution. Your job isn't to close the gap. Your job is to hold your position. If you've been here before, write this in the comments. I stayed composed. Stay with me. This distinction changes everything, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Number 2. Her hot and cold isn't random. Let's clear this up properly, folks, because hot and cold behavior drives men crazy for one reason. It feels unpredictable. One day, she's warm, engaged, responsive. The next day, she's distant, short, or emotionally unavailable. Most men assume this means she's playing games or slowly losing interest. That assumption is usually wrong. Here's the reality, my friend. Hot and cold behavior is not random when attraction is involved. It's a pattern created by inner conflict. Desire pulls her forward, fear pulls her back. What you're seeing is not confusion, it's tension moving back and forth. Let's be real about what cold actually looks like when there's no attraction. It's flat, consistent, unemotional. There's no warmth to contrast against. When someone truly doesn't care, there's no hot phase at all. Just silence, indifference, and distance that never changes. Hot and cold requires emotional energy. It requires awareness. It requires restraint. People don't fluctuate around things that mean nothing to them. From a Stoic perspective, this is where men lose control by misjudging appearances. Marcus Aurelius warned that we suffer more by interpreting events than by the events themselves. Hot and cold behavior is an event. Panic is the interpretation that causes damage. When she feels desire rise, she leans in. When she feels herself losing emotional control, she pulls back. This creates the swing that men misread as instability. In truth, it's self-regulation. Here's an important distinction most men miss. Hot and cold behavior often intensifies right after moments of connection, a deep conversation, a meaningful compliment, a shared laugh that lingers. Those moments activate attachment. Attachment activates fear. Coldness follows as a way to rebalance. This is not manipulation, it's instinct. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you stop reacting to what's outside your control. Her emotional pacing is outside your control. Your response is not. When you chase during the cold phase, you amplify her need to pull away. When you withdraw emotionally out of pride, you create instability. Both reactions break the rhythm. The disciplined response is steadiness. Hot and cold behavior is also a quiet test. Not a conscious one, but a psychological one. Can you remain consistent when her behavior fluctuates? Can you stay grounded without demanding clarity? Can you hold your frame when certainty is removed? Most men fail here because they want resolution. They want answers. They want reassurance. But attraction doesn't respond to interrogation. It responds to emotional safety. Stoicism teaches patience in uncertainty. Seneca wrote that impatience is a form of weakness. When you rush to resolve hot and cold behavior, you reveal anxiety. When you remain calm, you communicate strength. Here's the truth most men never hear. Hot and cold behavior often settles on its own when it's met with composure. When she senses that her shifts don't destabilize you, her nervous system relaxes. The swings soften. Consistency returns naturally. But if you panic, push, or pull away dramatically, the swings increase. Fear grows. Attraction stays unresolved. So understand this clearly, folks. Hot and cold isn't random, it's desire negotiating with fear. Your job isn't to decode every shift. Your job is to remain centered while the pattern reveals itself. If this perspective hits home, write this in the comments. I stay steady. Stay tuned. What comes next explains why this pattern escalates for some men and disappears for others. Number 3. She gets defensive when you matter. Let's be honest with each other, folks. Defensiveness doesn't show up when someone feels neutral about you. It shows up when you matter enough to touch something personal. When a woman becomes guarded, tense, or slightly reactive around certain topics, that's often not resistance, it's protection. Most men misread this moment completely. They think defensiveness means discomfort with them, or worse, that they crossed a line. And because they don't understand what's happening, they either apologize too much, retreat emotionally, or try to smooth everything over. All three responses weaken attraction. Here's the truth most men never hear. When you don't matter, there's no need to defend anything. A woman doesn't get tense, guarded, or sharp with someone she feels nothing for. She stays polite, distant, and emotionally flat. Defensiveness requires emotional investment. Let's put this into a real scenario. Take a man named Andrew, 49, confident, emotionally intelligent, successful in his career, but cautious in relationships. He meets Natalie, 44, independent, articulate, and deeply guarded after a painful breakup. Their connection develops naturally. Conversations are easy. There's mutual respect and a quiet sexual pull beneath the surface. One night, Andrew casually asks about Natalie's past relationship, not prying, not interrogating, just curiosity. Natalie's tone shifts immediately. She becomes short, slightly closed off, maybe even irritated. Andrew feels it instantly. His instinct is to backpedal, to reassure her he didn't mean anything by it, to change the subject quickly. But that reaction would miss the point entirely. Natalie didn't become defensive because Andrew overstepped. She became defensive because he mattered enough to get close to something she protects. The question touched vulnerability. Vulnerability triggers defense. Let's be clear here, my friend. Defensiveness is not rejection. It's a boundary forming around something meaningful. When a woman gets defensive, it usually means she doesn't feel emotionally neutral with you. She feels exposed. Andrew stays calm. He doesn't push. He doesn't apologize excessively. He simply acknowledges the moment and lets it pass. His composure communicates something powerful. He can handle her emotions without reacting to them. That matters more than words. This is where masculine presence shows itself. A man who can stay grounded when defensiveness appears sends a clear signal. I am safe. I am steady. I am not here to extract anything from you. Over time, Natalie opens up on her own terms. Not because Andrew forced the issue, but because he didn't make her defensiveness a problem. He didn't personalize it. He didn't retreat. He stayed present. Here's the psychological layer men often miss. Defensiveness increases when attraction deepens because the emotional stakes rise. The more someone matters, the more carefully feelings are guarded. You don't defend what has no value. When you respond to defensiveness with insecurity, you confirm her fear. When you respond with calm confidence, you lower her guard naturally. Andrew's consistency allows Natalie to feel safe enough to relax. Her defensiveness fades, not because it was challenged, but because it no longer felt necessary. So remember this, folks. When she gets defensive, don't assume you're unwanted. Assume you're getting closer to something real. Your job is not to break the wall. Your job is to remain solid while it lowers itself. If this sounds familiar, write this in the comments. I stayed steady. Stay with me. Understanding this moment prevents one of the most common mistakes men make when attraction starts to deepen. Number 4. She watches you without engaging. Let's slow this down, folks, because this sign is subtle and easy to misread. When a woman watches you without engaging, most men assume disinterest. They think if she cared, she would reach out, say something, or make a move. That assumption is usually wrong. Watching without engaging is not passive behavior, it's controlled attention. Here's the reality. Attention is never neutral. People don't track, notice, or observe what has no emotional relevance. When a woman keeps awareness on you while limiting interaction, it means attraction is present, but access is being restricted. She wants to feel without exposing herself. From a Stoic point of view, this makes perfect sense. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that people act according to what they perceive as necessary for their inner stability. Watching without engaging allows her to stay emotionally informed without risking vulnerability. Let's be direct here. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't watch at all. There would be no curiosity, no checking, no awareness of your movements or absence. Indifference doesn't observe, it ignores. This kind of behavior often shows up when attraction feels intense but unresolved. She wants to know where you stand, how you move, and whether your confidence holds without her reinforcement. Watching becomes a quiet way to assess emotional strength. Most men fail here because they react to the lack of engagement instead of recognizing the presence of attention. They try to force interaction. They post for reactions. They reach out repeatedly to provoke a response. Every one of those moves collapses the tension that observation creates. Epictetus taught that strength comes from mastering reaction, not controlling outcomes. When you react to being watched by seeking validation, you give away leverage. When you remain steady, attention deepens. Watching without engaging also has a strong sexual dimension. Sexual curiosity doesn't always move toward contact. Sometimes it pauses to build imagination. Imagination intensifies desire far more than constant interaction. Distance creates room for fantasy. Observation feeds it. Here's where discipline matters. When you remain composed and consistent, watching turns into anticipation. When you become reactive, watching turns into withdrawal. The difference is your behavior, not hers. Stoicism teaches us to remain unchanged by external behavior. Seneca warned that those who depend on approval become enslaved by it. When you stop performing for attention, you become more interesting to watch. This is why men who are grounded feel heavier in absence than men who chase in presence. Your calm becomes the signal. Your stability becomes the attraction. If you want to understand these patterns on a deeper level and learn how to apply them without guessing, this is exactly what we break down inside the members area. We go deeper into attraction psychology, emotional regulation, and masculine composure in real situations. If you're serious about mastering this instead of reacting to it, consider becoming a channel member. Here's the takeaway, my friend. Watching without engaging is not avoidance. It's controlled desire. Your role is not to interrupt it. Your role is to remain centered and let attention do its work. If this resonates with you, write this in the comments. I stay grounded, stay tuned. Understanding this behavior correctly prevents a mistake most men don't even realize they're making. Number 5. She mentions other men casually. Let's be real about this, folks, because this moment hits most men right in the ego. You're talking, things feel good, the connection is steady, and then out of nowhere, she casually mentions another man, a coworker, a guy who texted her, an ex who randomly reached out. She doesn't make a big deal out of it. She drops it like it's nothing, but inside it hits you. Most men immediately assume one thing: she's trying to tell me she's not interested. That assumption is usually wrong. Here's the truth most men never learn. When a woman mentions other men casually, it's rarely about those men. It's about you. Specifically, it's about how you handle emotional pressure when your position feels uncertain. Let's put this into a real situation. Take a man named Eric, 50, confident, successful, emotionally steady in most areas of life. He meets Lauren, 45, attractive, independent, socially active. Their connection builds naturally. There's chemistry, comfort, and a quiet sexual tension that doesn't need words. One evening while they're talking, Lauren casually says, "Yeah, this guy from work asked me out the other day." She says it lightly and moves on. Eric feels the shift immediately. His mind starts racing. Is she comparing us? Is she warning me? Is she testing me? His instinct is to react either by pulling back emotionally or by subtly trying to prove himself. This is where most men fail. Here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. When attraction starts to matter, uncertainty increases. Mentioning other men becomes a way for her to check one thing. Does your confidence hold when you feel replaceable? Lauren isn't trying to make Eric jealous. She's observing his emotional response. Can he stay grounded? Can he remain relaxed? Can he hold his frame without reassurance? If Eric didn't matter, there would be no need for this behavior at all. She wouldn't bother mentioning anyone. Indifference doesn't test, it ignores. Eric chooses composure. He doesn't react, he doesn't interrogate, he doesn't compete. He acknowledges it lightly and stays present. That calm response sends a powerful signal. I am not threatened, I know where I stand. That response changes the dynamic immediately. Here's the psychological layer most men miss. When a woman feels herself becoming emotionally invested, she looks for signs of stability in the man she's drawn to. Mentioning other men introduces pressure. Your reaction tells her whether you're anchored or reactive. Lauren notices that Eric doesn't flinch. He doesn't rush to prove value. He doesn't withdraw. That steadiness makes her feel safe leaning back toward him. Attraction doesn't respond to competition, it responds to confidence. There's also a sexual element here that matters. Jealousy reactions collapse sexual polarity. Calm indifference strengthens it. When you don't scramble for position, you feel solid. That solidity is attractive. Eric continues to show up the same way. Relaxed, present, unbothered. Lauren gradually stops mentioning other men at all. Not because Eric demanded it, but because the test no longer served a purpose. Here's the key lesson, my friend. When she mentions other men casually, don't assume she's pushing you away. Often she's checking whether you're emotionally steady enough to handle desire without insecurity. If you've experienced this before, write this in the comments. I stayed calm. Don't go anywhere. What comes next explains another subtle signal most men completely misunderstand, and missing it can change everything. Number 6. Her friends act strangely around you. Let's slow this down, folks, because this sign is subtle and easy to misread. When her friends start acting different around you, pay attention. This sign rarely gets discussed, yet it's one of the most revealing. Friends don't change behavior for no reason. They react to information, conversations, and emotional shifts that happened before you ever noticed them. Here's the part most men overlook. A woman may hide her feelings from you, but she rarely hides them from her friends. When attraction scares her, she talks about it privately. She analyzes it. She seeks reassurance. And once that happens, her inner circle knows you matter. From a Stoic perspective, this makes sense. Marcus Aurelius wrote that people reveal their values through their associations. Her friend's behavior reflects what she has already admitted to herself. You are no longer neutral. You are a subject. You notice the change in subtle ways. They watch you more closely. Conversations pause when you walk up. There's a knowing smile, a teasing comment, or a sudden effort to include you. Sometimes the opposite happens. They become quiet, guarded, even protective. Both reactions point to the same truth. You've become significant. Indifference has no audience. If she felt nothing, her friends would treat you like background noise, no curiosity, no tension, no adjustment. Strange behavior only appears when emotions are involved. Let's be clear, my friend. Friends act as emotional gatekeepers. When they sense she's losing control, they observe you. They evaluate your steadiness. They watch how you carry yourself under pressure. This isn't a test you're invited into. It's one happening quietly around you. Stoicism teaches awareness without reaction. Epictetus reminded us that character is revealed in moments we don't think we're being judged. This is one of those moments. How you respond to subtle social shifts matters more than what you say. Most men fail here by becoming self-conscious. They try to impress, they overperform, or they withdraw out of discomfort. Both reactions signal insecurity. Calm presence is the correct response. There's also a deeper psychological layer. Friends become protective when emotions feel risky. If they act cautious, it often means she's admitted vulnerability. If they act playful or encouraging, it often means she's conflicted but curious. Different styles, same source. Emotional investment. Seneca warned that seeking approval places your peace in the hands of others. When you remain grounded, you communicate strength. Strength relaxes social tension. It tells her friends you're safe to want. This is why mature attraction often shows up socially before it shows up directly. The environment shifts first. Energy moves before words do. One more thing matters here. Your reaction shapes the story others tell about you. Calm confidence travels fast through social circles. Anxiety travels faster. When you stay centered, people feel it. When you chase approval, they sense it. Without saying a word, you show whether you belong in her world or disrupt it. Presence communicates value long before attraction ever needs to speak. That awareness keeps you grounded when attention quietly turns toward you and reveals strength without effort or explanation ever. Here's the takeaway, folks. When her friends act strangely around you, don't analyze them. Observe yourself. Stay composed. Stay respectful. Stay steady. If you've noticed this before, write this in the comments. I stayed centered. Don't go anywhere. This awareness changes how you move next. Number 7. She creates distance after intimacy. Let's talk about this carefully, folks, because this moment confuses even experienced men. Intimacy happens. Not just physical intimacy, but emotional closeness. A deep conversation. A vulnerable moment. A kiss that lingers longer than expected. You feel connected. She feels connected. And then, almost immediately after, she creates distance. Most men take this personally. They assume intimacy should automatically lead to closeness, more communication, more availability, more emotional openness. So when distance appears instead, they feel rejected, used, or misled. That misunderstanding causes them to react in ways that quietly kill attraction. Here's the truth. Distance after intimacy is often not withdrawal, it's regulation. Let's ground this with a real example. Take a man named Jonathan, 55, calm, confident, emotionally steady, after years of self-work. He meets Claire, 49, attractive, intelligent, and cautious after a difficult divorce. Their connection develops slowly, but the chemistry is undeniable. One evening they share a long, honest conversation about past relationships, fears, and what they want moving forward. The energy is intense. There's closeness, warmth, and a clear sexual charge. The next day, Claire becomes distant. She doesn't initiate. Her replies are polite but brief. Plans feel uncertain. Jonathan notices the shift immediately. His first instinct is to ask what changed, to reassure her, to pull her back toward the closeness they just shared. That instinct is exactly where most men fail. What's actually happening is this. Intimacy lowered Claire's emotional defenses. It let desire move closer to the surface. That vulnerability feels good in the moment, but afterward it triggers fear. Fear of attachment, fear of loss, fear of losing control. Distance becomes a way to regain balance. Let's be real here, my friend. People don't need space from intimacy that means nothing. They need space from intimacy that feels powerful. If Jonathan didn't matter, Claire wouldn't need to create distance at all. She would simply continue casually or fade out completely. Distance after intimacy is often the nervous system, restoring equilibrium. Closeness creates exposure. Distance creates safety. This back and forth is not manipulation, it's emotional self-preservation. Jonathan does something important. He doesn't chase the intimacy they just shared. He doesn't accuse. He doesn't pull away in resentment. He stays steady. He keeps his life moving. His tone remains calm and consistent. He allows the space without interpreting it as rejection. That response changes everything. Over time, Claire starts to feel safe again. The distance no longer feels necessary. She re-engages naturally, not because Jonathan demanded closeness, but because he respected her pacing. Here's where masculine discipline matters. When you react emotionally after intimacy, you signal dependence. When you remain grounded, you signal strength. Strength creates safety. Safety allows intimacy to return without pressure. Many men sabotage attraction by trying to lock in closeness too quickly. They cling to the high of intimacy instead of allowing it to settle. Desire needs space to mature. Distance helps it integrate instead of overwhelm. Jonathan learns that intimacy doesn't need to be chased to be real. It needs to be trusted. His steadiness allows Claire to experience closeness without fear of being consumed by it. Here's the key lesson, folks. When she creates distance after intimacy, don't assume regret. Assume intensity. Your job isn't to pull her back in. Your job is to remain solid where you are. If you've been through this before, write this in the comments. I stayed grounded. You don't want to miss how this pattern connects to what comes next. Number 8. Fear makes desire act confusing. Let's get honest for a moment, folks, because this is where most men completely lose the plot. Desire doesn't always move cleanly. When fear enters, the picture attraction starts behaving in ways that feel inconsistent, illogical, and frustrating. One moment she feels drawn to you. The next moment she seems distant, guarded, or uncertain. That confusion isn't random. It's fear interfering with desire. Here's the reality most men don't want to face. Strong attraction doesn't just create excitement. It also creates risk. Emotional risk, sexual risk, the risk of attachment, vulnerability, and loss of control. When desire feels strong enough to matter, fear steps in to slow it down. From a Stoic perspective, this is entirely predictable. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the mind reacts not to reality, but to its interpretation of risk. When desire activates attachment, the mind starts searching for danger. Fear doesn't eliminate desire, it distorts it. This is why behavior becomes confusing. She might lean in emotionally, then pull back. She might show interest, then question it. She might open up, then shut down. Desire is still there, but fear is applying pressure from the other side. Most men misinterpret this confusion as manipulation or loss of interest. That misunderstanding causes them to react emotionally. They push for clarity. They ask for reassurance. They try to stabilize the situation too quickly. Those reactions don't reduce fear. They amplify it. Let's be clear here, my friend. Fear does not show up when attraction is weak. It shows up when attraction is strong enough to disrupt emotional equilibrium. If she felt nothing, there would be no confusion at all. There would be simple disinterest. Epictetus taught that disturbance comes from wanting external events to behave according to our expectations. Fear-driven attraction violates expectations. It doesn't follow a clean path. When you demand consistency from a situation that is emotionally volatile, you create tension instead of safety. Here's another important distinction. Confusion fueled by fear is different from confusion fueled by games. Fear-driven behavior softens over time when met with calm. Game-driven behavior escalates when it gets attention. Knowing the difference keeps you from wasting energy. Stoicism teaches restraint in uncertainty. Seneca warned that those who rush decisions under emotional pressure often regret them. When fear makes desire act confusing, patience is strength. Stillness is strength. Composure is strength. Most men try to resolve confusion immediately. They want answers. They want certainty. But attraction doesn't respond to interrogation. It responds to emotional safety. Safety is communicated through steadiness, not explanation. Fear makes desire retreat, advance, hesitate, and contradict itself. Your job is not to correct the movement. Your job is to remain stable while it unfolds. When you stay grounded, fear has nothing to push against. Without resistance, it loses power. This is why men who stay centered often see confusion resolve itself. The mixed signals soften. The push and pull slows down, not because they demanded clarity, but because their presence removed pressure. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is to be unlike the one who performs the injury. In this context, the best response to confusion is not reaction, but composure. You don't mirror instability, you anchor it. Here's the takeaway, folks. When fear enters desire, behavior gets messy. That doesn't mean attraction is gone. It means attraction is negotiating with vulnerability. Your strength lies in not needing immediate resolution. If this perspective resonates, write this in the comments. I stay composed. Don't go anywhere. Understanding this difference changes how you handle everything that follows. Number 9. Space triggers her emotional conflict. Let's be clear about this, folks, because space is where most men misunderstand what's really happening. When space appears, men assume attraction fades. They think distance means loss. In reality, space often does the opposite. It forces desire and fear to collide. That collision creates emotional conflict inside her. Here's the truth most men never see. When everything is close, consistent, and emotionally available, feelings stay manageable. When space enters, the mind no longer has constant reassurance. Thoughts get louder. Emotions intensify. Space doesn't remove attraction. It exposes it. Let's ground this in a real situation. Take a man named Paul, 58, calm, grounded, emotionally steady. He meets Diane, 52, attractive, intelligent, independent, and cautious after years of protecting her peace. Their connection develops naturally. Conversation is easy. Time together feels relaxed but charged. Paul doesn't chase. He doesn't push. He shows interest without urgency. Then space appears. Paul doesn't text every day. He doesn't fill every silence. He stays present but not constantly available. Diane notices the shift. And that's when the emotional conflict begins. Her mind starts working. She replays moments. She wonders where she stands. She feels drawn yet uneasy. Desire pulls her toward Paul. Fear reminds her of what closeness has cost her before. Space forces those two forces to meet. Here's the key point, my friend. Emotional conflict only shows up when something matters. If Paul were irrelevant, space would feel like relief. Instead, space creates tension. That tension is not disinterest. It's unresolved attraction. Most men sabotage this moment by panicking. They rush to close the space. They text more. They explain themselves. They try to re-establish certainty. And by doing that, they remove the very condition that revealed her feelings in the first place. Paul does something different. He stays steady. He doesn't disappear. He doesn't chase. He lets space exist without emotional reaction. That calm becomes a mirror. Diane is left alone with her feelings without pressure or reassurance. That's where clarity forms. Let's be honest here. Space strips away distraction. Without constant interaction, the mind focuses on what's missing. And when desire is real, absence makes it louder, not quieter. Diane starts feeling the pull more clearly, not because Paul changed, but because space removed noise. Her emotional conflict intensifies before it resolves. That's a sign of depth, not loss. This is where masculine discipline matters most. Space is not a tactic, it's a condition. When you can tolerate space without anxiety, you communicate strength. Strength creates safety. Safety allows her to resolve conflict without feeling chased or cornered. Paul remains consistent. When he does engage, his tone is relaxed. No tension, no resentment, no neediness. That steadiness tells Diane one thing clearly. He is not afraid of space. He is not afraid of her choice. Over time, the conflict settles. Fear loses ground. Desire becomes clearer. Diane leans in again, not because Paul pushed, but because space forced her to confront what she felt. Here's the lesson, folks. Space doesn't push away real attraction. It brings emotional truth to the surface. If there's nothing there, it fades. If there is something real, it intensifies before it resolves. If you've seen this happen before, write this in the comments. I allow space. You don't want to miss how this final shift ties everything together. Stay with me. Number 10. She's scared of falling for you. Let's bring all of this together calmly, folks, because this is the core truth most men never fully understand. When a woman is scared of falling for you, her behavior won't look smooth, confident, or consistent. It will look conflicted. It will look restrained. And sometimes it will look like resistance. Fear does not show up when attraction is weak. Fear shows up when attraction feels powerful enough to change her life. Most men believe that if a woman truly wants them, she will move toward them without hesitation. That belief sounds logical, but it ignores how human psychology actually works. Wanting someone means risk, emotional risk, sexual risk, the risk of attachment, loss of control, and reopening old wounds. When attraction is light, it feels safe. When attraction is deep, it feels dangerous. This is why her behavior may seem contradictory. One moment she's present, warm and connected. The next moment she's guarded, distant, or hesitant. Not because she's unsure about you, but because she's unsure about what wanting you might cost her. Let's look at how this fear forms. Falling for someone threatens the structures she's built to protect herself. Independence, emotional boundaries, the identity she created after past disappointment. Desire challenges all of that. Fear steps in to slow the process, not to stop it, but to control it. Here's the key distinction, my friend. Fear doesn't push people away forever. It creates hesitation. It creates pauses. It creates tests of emotional safety. A woman who is scared of falling for you watches how you handle uncertainty. She notices whether you rush to secure her, pressure her for clarity, or collapse emotionally when she pulls back. Those reactions confirm her fear. But when you stay steady, something different happens. When you don't chase her fear, when you don't argue with her hesitation, when you don't try to force certainty, you communicate strength. Not loud strength, quiet strength, the kind that feels safe. Fear fades in the presence of emotional stability. This is why composure matters more than effort. Effort can feel needy. Composure feels grounded. When she senses that her feelings don't destabilize you, her nervous system relaxes. She no longer needs to protect herself from you. This doesn't mean you become distant or cold. It means you remain present without attachment to outcome. You stay open without leaning forward emotionally. You let her feelings move at their own pace. That space allows her to choose desire instead of defending against it. Here's something important to understand. When fear is driving her behavior, it resolves itself only one of two ways. Either attraction fades because it was shallow, or attraction clarifies because it was real. Your job is not to decide which one it will be. Your job is to stay grounded enough to let the truth surface. Men who panic at this stage never find out what was possible. Men who stay composed give attraction room to become honest. So remember this, folks. When she's scared of falling for you, it's not a problem to solve. It's a moment to respect. Strength here is not pursuit. Strength is patience. And patience, when combined with presence, is what allows real desire to reveal itself. All right, folks, let's wrap this up. Today you learned why her distance, mixed signals, and hesitation don't always mean rejection. You saw how fear, desire, and emotional control collide when attraction becomes real, and why staying calm, grounded, and disciplined keeps your power intact instead of pushing her away. If you want to go deeper and learn how to apply these principles clearly in real situations, consider becoming a channel member. Inside the members area, we break this down step by step, so you stop guessing and start moving with confidence. And if this kind of perspective helps you see relationships more clearly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for spending your time with me today. I appreciate you, and I'll see you again soon.